all you can and you're running with kings. But how far could you go if you run with the wind? And the chances you take are what give you wings, and you can fly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our series with Kent Roberts, co-founder of the Civility Center. We have spoken briefly in other clips, and please check the YouTube channel and links that we promote on civilitycenter.org to learn more. But we spoke with Kent briefly in the past about the difference between bridging and building. So please play that clip if you like in advance of listening to this one or afterwards. But in this clip, we'd like to get into things a little bit deeper. And Kent, can you share with our listeners, how can a community start bridging? How do you initiate bridging activities or build a bridging mindset in a community?
Well, this is an interesting topic, and I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit by talking a little bit about crisis. It's interesting when communities, because of some natural disaster or something happens that is just horrible. Of course, we're coming right out of this pandemic that we've had to deal with here with this virus. But it's interesting that in crisis, people bridge together. They find ways and do things that they never normally would do. But then, unfortunately, as soon as the crisis is over, we go back to where we were before. And we look at the time and said, boy, we all pitched in, we were all in this together, and we all stepped to the plate and we got the job done. We didn't care who it was. We didn't care. Some of us were drowning. We were going down for the third time. We didn't care whose hand was reaching out to us. We grabbed it and we pulled each other up. So I think it's important that we understand that, think of that as a crisis. And if we were thinking our community was in constant crisis, we might react differently. Or how would we build the type of infrastructure, and how intentionally would we do things so that we could collectively leverage all our skills and all our abilities and all our financial investments or whatever we needed to do to get the outcome we desired, how that would be, so we could kind of do some futuring on that topic. Or if we've had a crisis in the near past, what did we do? And how could we keep that going? So I'm throwing that first thing out there, is that this is not an impossibility, because it's being done around the world almost every day. And it's being done to meet all kinds of different types of threats, man-made or natural, that have been that happened to us. But the word I used was intentional. So let's go on with how we might do that. The best time, obviously, to build is when you're in abundance and not when you are in crisis. So if we were to think about, okay, what would that look like? And I want us to take a look at, I'm going to simply use just 3 different levels of community, or you can decide how you want to dice it up inside your organization or in your personal life. But at the community level, this uses public, private, and nonprofit sectors. This just use those 3 as just 3 different silos of the community. And one of the things that we can do is, the strength of the community is the correlation of the connectivity between those 3 different silos. If the public sector just acts in its silo, and the private sector and the nonprofit, they may be somewhat successful and they will do things within their silo. But if they want to have the maximum amount of impact and have the best possible outcomes, they've got to integrate their ideas and thoughts and actions. And not only that, they may find out that the number one problem they're facing is the same problem in each different silo, and they're all working on their own solutions, where if they would integrate their ideas and thoughts and blend them together, they might be able to come up with a solution that would help all three. We have to be able to think in terms of how would we do that? Well, one way would be is on a semi-regular basis, integrate boards. If you have your chamber board or your economic board, and you have your different elected officials or your different city council people or whoever runs this in the public sector, and then you have all these people over here in education who are part of that public sector too, and then you have your private folks in your nonprofit boards and all the major nonprofits within the community, which might include your churches. Each community will be different. I cannot give you a template that would fit every community. But the idea is, when can we gather and break bread and have a supper, and the head of each of those different areas talk briefly about the problems they're facing and what they're going through and what they're trying to do. There doesn't have to be a solution that night. We just have to listen to each other. And we may find out that, like I said, we're facing the same types of problems. And maybe the solutions would be the same for different folks. But by bringing people together and just listening is a good way to find out. When you have trainings, all right, I'm a private sector company, and I'm going to have this training on civility inside my organization because I know that I can create a 30% more profit by being, it's a solution, right, Lou? And so I'm going to have this civility training. Well, I can invite key people from outside outside within the community, from maybe education, from city government, maybe from a nonprofit or whatever, just to sit in on the meetings and learn. And when you learn together, that was a great way to integrate the thoughts and ideas in dealing with bridging. One of the things that we did in our community back when, and I was heavily involved in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, and I'm not trying to just promote his stuff, but it worked for our community. And we had a lot of different people who liked the 7 Habits. So what we decided to do as a community is we would have what I would consider to be a diagonal slice of the community and create 36 different spots that we would slot in people from really taking a diagonal slice of our community. So many from education, so many from the ministerial association, so many from higher education, so many from the private sector, so many from the nonprofit world and other different folks. And sometimes throw in a student or throw in other different folks. And we would do this cross-community training. And from learning together, all the asides and all the positives that happen because of that, I cannot stress to you enough the positives that came out of doing and learning together. So you can be intentional about what it is that you do. You just got to think in terms of getting out of your silo, integrating thoughts and ideas, and whenever possible, blend them.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to touch on one thing you mentioned there at the end, being intentional. And so there's quite a bit of buzz lately, in meditation circles and other things about this concept of setting intentions. And is that the same thing when you talk about being intentional, that there's a deliberation, that there's a thoughtful goal setting process? Or what do you mean when you say be intentional?
Deliberately thinking of how we could, in this particular case, how we can bridge, how we can integrate sectors and in different individuals together. So as we sit down, say for example, we're going to have, I'm a school system, and we got a curriculum council. and we all throw the new ideas on any new curriculum. We throw those ideas and we discuss them openly with this council. Well, who's going to be on the council? With intention, you bring in different people, private sector people, nonprofit folks, someone from, like I said, from the faith community. So you are intentional in things that you do. It's not by accident that you have these people sitting on a board together to discuss something as important as curriculum in a school. And if it had to do with some environmental thing and the city was trying to do it, government was trying to do, and they had a citizens panel, they would not just round up the usual suspects. They would be very intentional about, again, what I call this diagonal slice of your community, trying to figure out each community, what would that mean, a diagonal slice from top to bottom within your community, and who would that be? And try to fill, as whenever possible, committees and boards and trainings and things that you can do when you can do it.
Excellent. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, Kent.
The reason why each of us comes to this earth, and your actions will always speak louder than words, and you'll never know what you're capable of until you try.